live from the Coachella Valley. Time for another hour of the desert scene. Art exhibitions to modernism, music festivals to live theater, big screen, little screen, and very little screen. This is the Culture Corner with Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza. Here's Bonnie and Brayan on iHub Radio.
And welcome to the Culture Corner, and we've got some great guests and some wonderful, lots of entertainment news going on. Hey, Brayan, how's it going?
Good. It's Oscar season already.
Yeah, so tell us what's going to be happening this year with the Oscars.
So the Academy Awards have decided to have a in-person event, which, you know, I think with a lot of the news going around about because Bonnie informed me of the Paris lockdown again, it's a little concerning, but I'm hoping that they would at least be as safe as they can. They also said that they don't want any casual attire there. They also don't want any Zoom meetings. So if let's say you're one of the actors nominated and you did not want to attend because you felt, okay, it's safe but not safe enough for me.
Right.
You would have to have a representative there just in case you win.
So they would have to give your speech. You can't do it on Zoom.
No, you can't do a Zoom, nothing like that. They want to avoid all that. And the Grammys did something like that too. But I think on the Grammys, they did occasionally let some people conference, but the Grammys is a little bit less crowded than the Academy Awards. Grammys on a yearly basis tends to get smaller and smaller because musicians boycott that, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're going to do, because normally the Oscars, everyone's in like theater seats, jam. I wonder if they're going to change it and like have people at table. It'd be better if they were at tables. So then you could space it in, just have a small group, 6 people at one table and then space out, that would be one way to do it.
I think so too. I think what they're trying to do is what movie theaters are doing, because now that they're opening up again, there's this sort of like, how do we do this where they
space between the seats and block them off? Yeah,
I think it would be like that. And they're also trying to convince people to wear masks unless they're on stage, which even then there's still some controversy and some debate among medical professionals about whether or not one person not having a mask in front of a stage and no glass thing between them, is that enough to get people sick who have masks? And that's an actual legitimate question. Like, that it's not, they're not saying don't wear a mask or anything like that. That none of that. They're just saying that would that actually be enough?
How much protection is it in that situation? Yeah.
And how much would I think they say like particles that come out of your mouth, like the droplets,
can fly,
and stay in the air. Like that would be stuff like that I would hope we would resolve. If I was there, if I was told, hey, you got to keep them, they got to take off their mask, or they have the option to take off their mask. Every time someone takes off the mask, I would spray disinfectant spray, and then get the person to kind of walk a little slowly. I mean, the Academy Awards take 3 hours to begin with.
Anyway, yeah.
So you might as well, spend the time to make it safe and all that. But I think for me, I would encourage the Academy Awards to just not have as many people go on there and make it you win this award, boom, 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 make a joke in between there.
And get off.
But but they don't have to do like all these tributes, because they always do these tributes. Unless the one tribute they should do, but I think that they should record it off somewhere where they have someone like pre-record the day before and they do like a video tribute of all the celebrities who died, because a lot of them did die.
Yeah. So that makes total sense. Yeah. It's a tough question. It's a tough call. But we were talking about this. I mean, I just keep hoping. I mean, yes, we've got a vaccine. A lot of people are getting vaccinated, but still a lot of people to go. I haven't yet. I'm not in a category. You're not in a category yet to be, not over 65, not a healthcare worker, etc. Still a lot of people that have not been vaccinated yet. And that's still not a magic cure-all. It's a great step. It's really fabulous. But there are new variants that are coming out. That's why this Paris is on their 3rd lockdown now, because they've got a new variant that has popped up. And they don't know that all the vaccines are work against every new variant. So I'm just hoping that we all want this to be over. We all want to not wear masks anymore. We all want to go out. We want to go to parties. We all want to be back to normal. But if you rush this and get ahead of yourselves, what's going to happen, what's very likely to happen, is a resurgence, just like they're having in Paris, and to lockdown again. And then people are going to be even more upset.
And the funny thing is, just to be clear with the listener, we talk about this a lot because I think we want to make it clear that we want entertainment back and we want those things to come back, but
as safely as you can do it.
But we also have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Like every time there's a major event like the Super Bowl, the Golden Globes, I have been trained by the pandemic to think, is it safe?
Right.
Is this going to backfire? Like no matter how much I want to avoid that elephant, it's there. And when movies are filmed, like I was watching WandaVision, and the finale seemed a little less crowded. There was this big finale where Wanda encounters the people of the town that she manipulates, right?
Okay.
And spoiler alert for that show, but that show's been out.
Okay.
And it seemed like the crowding was it was spaced out, and I thought, is this because of COVID, or was it filmed deliberately like this? Because the actors were spaced out a little bit more often, and it was a scene where they were approaching her, but even when they were approaching her, there was a lot of spacing.
Yeah.
And so now my brain thinks that way, and I want to get to a point where I don't think about that, but I think we live in a COVID world, just like how in the 80s we lived in the world of AIDS. We had to adjust
your life, and just it is what it is. Yeah.
It's like with Rock Hudson and Dynasty, how on Dynasty it's a little uncomfortable looking back at Dynasty, because I imagine myself in the 80s not knowing anything about AIDS, because even during COVID there's still disinformation.
We don't know everything. There are things people don't know. Yeah.
And with AIDS, like when he kisses Crystal, now I know, like, oh, that could happen and nothing happens. But I can't imagine being Linda Evans in 1980.
Back then they didn't know. Yeah.
And so it's funny, we went from the Academy Awards to a discussion about looking at things, but it's like I can't help it. I look at what's going on television and film, and I think that must be because of COVID. There's no possible way that they're that distant from each other. Why am I not seeing characters in the same shots together a lot of times?
I would bet that it was. I mean, because it's been a year. So, and you hear people say, well, there's vaccines, and I've been vaccinated, or I'm young, and I'm healthy, and I'm this, and I'm that, and this didn't happen, that didn't happen. Here's the thing. The risk, you have to think about what is the risk. And you're right. Maybe, you go to, people go to the Academy Awards and they space it. All right, maybe, the chances of someone there having COVID and you getting COVID and ending in the hospital might be very low. But do you want to risk that? I mean, I personally know 2 people who have died from it. And I know another person who had it and recovered, but it's been 2 or 3 months, still has no sense of smell or taste. 3 months. Do you want to go 3 months or the rest of your life not tasting food, not smelling anything? Do you want to end up dead? I mean, the risk is too high.
I agree. And I would say that I hope that if the Academy Awards, when they go through with it, that they at least try to be as safe as possible, but also to be mindful of the science, as they would say. But to get on to the more positive aspects of the Academy Awards, the film, this has actually been a pretty, I would say, if there was a year where the Academy Awards could finally get told that, I think you're getting to the right, you think you're getting there in terms of the criticism where they've been told they're not diverse enough, or they purposely avoid. Last year they had a movie called Parasite, which had a bunch of Asian actors, and none of them got nominated, and it won Best Picture, and so it deserved Best Picture in my opinion. I think it should have been tied with Little Women, because that was my other one. But it seems like there's all these discussions that people have against the Academy Awards, and now this year they're a little bit different this year. Most of these movies have been streaming movies. Netflix leads the pack with 10 nominations for Mank, a movie that follows the production of Citizen Kane and the life of the screenwriter. It's actually it's a pretty good movie. I saw part of it. I'll give, when we get closer to it, I think I'll give proper reviews to each one. And then there's The Father, which is a movie about starring.
It's Anthony Hopkins. I've heard he's wonderful. I've heard.
Yeah, I think he even got nominated for Best Actor in that movie. And then Judas and the Black Messiah, which was on HBO Max. It did that HBO Max in theater thing, which I think is a great idea. Put them both. And I think that's a great movie. Most of these movies are great. Minari, which follows the lives of a South Korean immigrant family in rural America. That one's great. Nomadland, which is the favorite to win. This one is with Frances McDormand. She plays a woman who leaves everything behind to go live off country, be a nomad. And Promising Young Woman, which is a revenge movie.
Seen a lot of previews on that, yeah.
And there's Sound of Metal, which is about a man who becomes a drummer and he loses his hearing. And Trial of the Chicago 7, which is about the Chicago 7 anti-Vietnam War protests, you know. And this has been and in terms of directors, I'm not going to name each one. Of course, it's on there, but this is the first year that 2 women were nominated for Best
Regina
Director.
King, was she one of them?
No, she's actually one of the snubs this year. She directed One Night in Miami, and everyone loved it, and a lot of people said that was a mistake, but she didn't get.
Who were the women that were nominated?
Chloe Zhao for Nomadland, which if she wins would not be a surprise to me because that movie is anticipated to win. And then Emerald Lily Fennell for her directing debut in Promising Young Woman.
All right, good for her.
And this is also the first year that 2 Asian Americans were nominated. Lee Isaac Chung for Minari and Chloe Zhao for Nomadland.
Sounds like this year is more diverse, that there's a lot more diversity in both just the sort of the subject matter of the movies and people nominated. That's great. That's good to hear.
No, I agree with you on that, because for me, it's like when I look at the movies this year, it's like they're a little less Oscar baity. That's what I was thinking. It's like every year we have these Oscar bait movies. It's like it's going to get nominated.
Yeah, for your consideration, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
But Promising Young Woman, to me, like when I heard that got nominated, I'm like, really? I thought, what? And then Sound of Metal. These are movies that it shows that we are not only more diverse in terms of race and all that, but we're also more diverse about what is a great movie.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And other notable things about the Academy Awards: Chadwick Boseman, who died earlier this year, was nominated for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and if he wins, will be I think the 3rd or 4th post Omerous win. And then a notable thing: Glenn Close was nominated for Hillbilly Elegy, and the same performance got nominated for Worst Supporting Actress at the Razzies. The Razzies and the Academy Awards nominated the same performance in their same category.
Did you see it?
I saw that movie, and it, you know what, like, it's one of those things where, like, the book itself, it's a great book, but, you know, when you think critically, it has its problems.
What is this basic story?
The basic story is about the problems of a family when a Yale law student returns home and lives with his grandmother when his mother's having drug problems. And it deals with their circumstances from being poor. And Glenn Close plays the grandmother. And her performance, it's going to depend on what you think a good performance is.
Yeah.
I think she did a good job, but there are times where I'm like, okay, you got to tone it down a bit.
A little over the top, maybe.
And I would be honest, if she wins an Oscar for this, because she's long overdue for one, I'd be very disappointed. I think this would be the worst performance she would have won for. And for me, she should have won in 1987 for Fatal Attraction, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, that was a heck of a performance, yeah.
And overall, this year, pretty good nominations. And most of them are on streaming, so if you do want to watch them, they are readily available. But, of course, you have to have the streaming services.
Yeah. Just a minor detail. All right, cool. We'll be back with more news and then later some guests on the Culture Corner. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Here are Bonnie and Brayan.
Hey, welcome back to The Culture Corner. And every once in a while, we dabble into an intersection called politics. And
entertainment and politics. Yeah.
Because let's be fair here. Politics will always be a part of entertainment.
They cross over. They cross over.
Crossovers.
Yeah.
But in this case, they really crossed over, as Stacey Dash actually finally announces that she's going to quit politics, want to get back into acting, and she has disavowed the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. She has talked about in the Daily Mail that for years she felt like on Fox News that she was used as the angry black woman, and that she said that she lived her life, I'm going to quote her exactly, I lived my life being angry, which is what I was on Fox News. I was the angry conservative black woman. And at the time in my life, it was who I was. I realized in 2016 that anger is unsustainable and it will destroy you. I made a lot of mistakes because of that anger. There are things that I'm sorry for, things that I did say that I should not have said them the way I did. And they were very arrogant, prideful, and angry. That's who Stacey Dash was, and that's not who Stacey Dash is now. Stacey's someone who has compassion. And she has disavowed, she said that she has disavowed the Capitol riot, saying they were appalling, and that she said that was the moment where she was like, I'm done, because senseless violence of any kind is something she won't denounce.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was talking about politics, she said, you know, as far as he's concerned, Trump is not the president. We have a new president, she said. And she said, being a supporter of Trump put me in a kind of box that I don't belong in. But he's not the president. I'm going to give the president that we have now a chance. Now, this is an interesting case because Stacey Dash on Fox News, when she was on there, she got fired when Donald Trump became president because for years there's been this, I'm going to hint at it more than anything, speculation that she fit a certain mold that would critique Barack Obama. And Stacey Dash has since wanted to go back to acting, and she ran for office, but, you know, that didn't work out. And, you know, I wanted to hear your thoughts on this, Bonnie.
Well, I'm curious. So she was fired from Fox in 2016, right when Donald Trump became president. What was the reason do you think, did they say that she was fired, or do people speculate? There
was more speculation. I think it was just that she got fired. There's speculation that because they didn't need that type mold.
They didn't need that anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, she did her
job, filled the role. Now get rid of her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she also said that in general, like, they just, you know, felt that I guess they just didn't want to have her around anymore. And she was initially hired on for cultural analysis and commentary, quote unquote. And I would say that Stacey Dash, I'm going to be honest with you, I think Stacey Dash kind of it's a complicated thing because it's like, when do we allow someone back in to the mold, you know, like no one pushed her out to begin with. She
chose that.
She walked out, and I kind of want to ask, like, I have some skepticism about her statements because when it comes to being a celebrity, image is everything.
Right.
You know?
Now she was an actress before.
Yeah.
Fox. What remind me of some of the stuff she did?
Clueless. She was in Clueless. She played the best friend of Alicia Silverstone.
All right, I'm sort of picturing her now. So, but did she do a lot? Was that her main role before the Fox thing?
Before Fox, that was pretty much her thing. She's now more famous as a conservative pundit rather than a actress. And I would say to her that it's one of those, you made your bed and you laid in it.
Exactly. I was going to say, I mean, you know, it's going to be interesting. It will be interesting to see how Hollywood welcomes her or does not back after that. It should be very interesting to see because, you know, she chose that. She took the job and she fulfilled the role of, you know, criticizing Barack Obama. That's just apparently what she was hired for. For how many years she did that. And now all of a sudden you know, you have to wonder, is it convenient? Well, now I'm going to say I don't believe any of that because I want to go back to Hollywood. I don't know. You know, what does she really believe?
I want to say that there might be, I always believe that when it comes to celebrities, there's always some truth in what they publicly put out because, you know, because that's the type, because she's trying to make another bed. She made a bed and she's going to sleep in it, but now she wants to make that bed over. And she has not avoided, I'm going to be honest, at least she's not saying that she isn't conservative anymore, which, you know, I wouldn't believe because she's put it out so much that it would take another decade for me to believe that.
Right.
And she was in a movie called Roe v. Wade, which was about Roe v. Wade, as we all know. The abortion laws. And she was in that movie. And for the most part, it was funded by the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws. So you can see what type of movie this was in. Yeah. It was a conservative-led movie. So I'm interested to see if she's going to mostly stick to independent movies and deal with that. I think that's the thing is with Stacey Dash is that it comes to a point where you want to you kind of want to have her. see what she did was wrong, but also like you're almost like, okay, like you said some good things right there, but like I'm not sure yet. Like,
let's just see. Let's just see. We're gonna take this with a grain of salt until she sort of proves herself. You know, we'll see. Interesting. Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We'll really see.
But when you make really strong political statements, it's hard to kind of walk that back, I think.
I agree. And it takes a real long time. I think even like a political pundit like David Brock, he was very much against the Clintons, and then, you know, he changed his tune. And
now you're allowed to change your mind. It's a free country, that's for sure. All right, when we come back, we're going to have Mikael Healey, a wonderful musician, pianist who plays at Melvin's and has been around town for years. We're going to talk to him in just a bit on the Culture Corner.
The curtain rises on local and regional arts and entertainment. From music to theater, films to fine art, it's the Culture Corner. Get connected. Call 760-544-TALK. That's 760-544-8255. Here's Bonnie and Brayan on iHub Radio.
And we are back on the Culture Corner, and now we're really pleased to welcome. I've been trying to book this guy for a while, but he's been really, really, really busy. My buddy and a wonderful musician, Mikael Healey, who plays at Melvin's. Has been at Melvin's for years and other places around town. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Hi, Bonnie. I'm doing well. Yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. So you're back at Melvin's. I know a lot of places are kind of slowly taking baby steps and opening up to, you know, either outside or then small capacity inside. So tell us what's happening at Melvin's now.
Well, your term baby steps is probably a good one. We like everyone else, are trying to get things revved back up while being within the proper guidances and safety. But more to the point of what you're asking me, we have been offering dining outdoors on our patio, as well as our veranda, which has really turned out to be quite popular. Lovely outdoor experience, and has worked out. And now, as of Wednesday, as we have moved to the red tier, we're offering 25% indoors in our main dining room. And then, as you know, I'm playing outside on a patio. Mm-hmm. So we're like everyone. We're making the best of what is safe and appropriate, and trying to. I think your phrase was baby steps to bring back the Melvin's experience.
Yeah, and so how have the patrons reacted to the way things are opening? Did everyone seem pretty happy about it?
People are very happy, Bonnie. It's really a delight to see people. They're obviously within the guidances, and they're very pleased to be out and enjoying the experience that we offer. It's really. It's a joy. It really is.
Mm-hmm. All right, but let's go back. And talk about the way things, were before COVID. But also, let's talk about your history and how you came to Melvin's. I mean, you were at, I think, with Cedar Creek Inn. Tell people a little bit about your background here in the desert and where you first started playing and how it evolved to you being the main guy at Melvin's.
Sure. I've been in the desert now, around 27 years. I came here with brown hair and a ponytail, and if you know me, you know that I don't have hair anymore. And I came with a young lady, and we came down here for an engagement, and we sang a number of local places here, and Mel Haber heard about us through somewhere, and he came to see us, and we were new in town. We didn't know. Somebody said, "Oh, that's Mel Haber," and we found out all about Melvin's and what a historic place. Anyway, try and make a long story shorter, he kept coming 2, 3, 4 times, and eventually asked us if we would meet him down at Melvin's for lunch, and we did. And of course, driving into Melvin's was like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Yeah, pretty nice joint. Yeah,
right. And this was back in the days. So he asked. the young lady, whose name was Anna Rose, she and I were singing together, and to come to work at Melvin's, which we did. And it was a wonderful thing. Mel used to send down a dozen red roses every night that Anna would sing.
Wow, isn't that nice? Yeah.
He was just an amazingly supportive man of what we did.
Yeah.
Anyway, as things will happen in our business, we went on to do other things. I was directing some theater at the time. And then we went on to, as you said, about a 7-year residency at the Cedar Creek Inn, which was just a wonderful time here in town for us because we released 6 CDs during that time.
Wow.
And at that time, interestingly, for those who only know me from Melvin's, I was basically known for Broadway musicals. And so that's pretty much what we did was a presentation centered largely around Broadway musicals. And then, Mel and I would call each other. We used to call it our yearly call. And I'd call up, how you doing, Mel? How you doing? What, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we had one of those after Cedar Creek Inn. And we were actually doing a few nights over at Lions. And he said, well, how's your schedule look? I'd like you to come back. And I did this time, and I had the availability. And this was when Nino Fontana was doing the weekend nights, and I came back for the weeknights. And along the way, Nino Fontana suggested to Mel that I would be good at doing the jam. And then Mel called me and asked me if I would. And my answer to Mel was, I will, as long as no one is going to lose their job on the basis of my answer. That was about 14 years ago. And the jam has just become a living, breathing entity.
It sure has.
And a testament to the wonderful things that Mel set in motion there at Melvin's.
So how would you describe your style, your performing style?
There's an interesting question. Well, I think we're all a culmination of the many, many things that we do in the road that leads to where we are. My background is in classical music first, and then, as I said, Broadway musicals. I did that early on in my career before I went to work in Vegas, and then it was a little of everything. But more to the point, it's been more recent, say in the last 20 years or so, that I've gotten more involved with jazz, and so taking classical beginnings and Broadway musicals, then tossing them in the mixing pot with standard jazz, swing jazz, bebop jazz, all of the various types of things, and then working with some of the most amazing musicians in the industry. It's just been a huge teaching tool. So I've really been lucky.
Tell me a couple of folks that you worked with that people would know that you really had an amazing collaboration with.
I worked with Don Rickles for quite some time in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And that was an amazing experience. Just an extraordinarily kind man. Taught me a lot of ropes that I was very young, and I guess he saved me from stepping in the puddles myself.
Okay. All right. Good. And for people that don't know, I mean, I know that during the season, of course, when there's no COVID, back when days were normal during the season, boy, the Sunday jam at Melvin's, it gets packed, and you get I know Melvin's, a lot of people, when they come to visit the desert, it's one of the places that people recommend that they go, not just for the food and the beautiful ambiance, but the music and the jam in particular. I mean, Sundays, boy, you get in there during the season, January, February, March, before the virus, it's packed. So talk a little bit about the vibe there and your stamp that you put on the jam.
Well, thank you, Bonnie. Whenever I have a conversation with someone, especially folks from out of town, the question about the jam always comes up, and I'm glad of that because we've obviously established a must-do thing in Palm Springs. But the jam, as I look back over it, it's kind of like one of those quick scans in your mind, but it was a very different entity when I got it. And it changed slowly over time. One of the real blessings and real great things that I did early on was surround myself, as I said before, with top-notch musicians. So that, what I didn't know, I could learn from people who did. And it began to grow, and as you know, you have appeared as a guest at the jam, and we've enjoyed that. It became more of a professional presentation as opposed to a sing-along type presentation. And that seemed to be something that worked in the sense of setting it up more like, if you will, an impromptu show. It just grew and grew and grew, and I sort of tried to go along with the growth trend and see that I could aim things in the direction that they seem to want to go. So, and as you say, it turned into this where you really just couldn't get into the door. Yeah. And I probably should mention that the jam will come back.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know exactly at this moment, because things won't look the way they did before. But the conversation is alive and well, and we are intending to bring the jam back.
So just make sure we get this in before we run out of time. People want to come just see you. You are there. What days and times? So at this point,
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 6 p.m. until 10. Or the easier way to think of it is right now I'm there every day we're open.
Okay. All right. And but one thing I always like to ask performers of any kind, I know you probably don't have a lot of time when you're off where you go cure other people, but if you're ever in a position where you're out with your lovely wife to go hear music somewhere and you go hear another piano player, another band, what do you look for? What do you want to see and hear from other musicians as an audience member?
That's an interesting question. I find myself not going out much, and I sometimes feel guilty that I don't get a chance to see more of the local entertainment. But working as much, pre-COVID, I was working 6 nights a week, and right now 5. I don't find myself always wanting to go out. But to try and answer your question, when I go out, I really try, and it's not always easy, but to divorce myself from the Mikael Healey mind. I try to just go with the flow of what's happening as opposed to, listening for or what would I like or what don't I like. It's just, an experience is an experience, and we take it and go with it. Not trying to be evasive. I honestly do just try and get out of that suit.
All right, and what if you had to choose a genre of music? I know you pretty much do it all right now. Is there one that you enjoy playing more than others? Do you enjoy the jazz more, the Broadway more, the classical more?
Probably the classical and the jazz.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, Mikael, if you have not heard Mikael Healey, you need to go down to Melvin's Wednesday through Sunday, 6 to 10, at the lovely patio on the veranda, now in the main dining room. He's terrific. He's a wonderful musician, puts on a great show. Mikael, thank you so much for being here. I'm glad we finally got you on, and I look forward to someday down the road, the jam again, and maybe one day getting up and singing again. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. All right.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
All right, Mikael Healey. All right, we're going to be back with much more on the Culture Corner in just a bit.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Live from the desert cities of Southern California, here's Brayan and Bonnie.
And we're back on the Culture Corner, and I just want to mention real quick, this afternoon on the John McMullen Show, outgoing Palm Springs City Manager David Reddy will join John to talk about legal action the city is bringing against a handful of hotel operators who have not completed their construction projects to get them done, especially now as visitors are starting to stream back into the city. So check that out. That's this afternoon, the John McMullen Show, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on iHub Network.
You know, that's interesting that you say that about visitors coming in. That's actually the subject of our news story right now. Coachella might actually get postponed to 2022.
Wow.
So there's a source, an anonymous source that is close to the Golden Voice. It might be even part of Golden Voice, the organization that organizes the event, right? So they said that they might switch it to 2022. And so there's a lot of like conversations about, now that we're getting vaccinated, when do concerts come back, like large form concerts? So Rolling Stone actually put out an article called When Do Concerts Come Back? And somebody, apparently a representative who represents all these major artists, said you get one event that's a super spreader, and that can still happen. You want to be as far away from that as possible. Mm-hmm. And he said that I still think on a touring level, on a national level, no, wait until next year.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Coachella Fest, that's about the worst super spreader I could imagine for something like this. I mean, you think about how many people just jam together. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I
also believe that personally, too, the people who go there, like they're people who don't live here. So you never know.
They're coming from everywhere.
So
everywhere.
And most people who are at Coachella, I don't go to Coachella. People I know that live here, we don't go to Coachella. It's always people from Los Angeles or like big cities, which, you know, you never know what's going on in big cities. You never know how it's kind of like everyone might be safe in their houses, but maybe there's one person who honestly got sick and comes to the event.
Comes here from LA or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a wise move to push it back. Yeah.
I agree with that. And I think in general, I think that people will probably have way more fun next year because, you know, if we're hoping, maybe they don't even have to wear masks anymore at that point, which I'm hoping is the case. You never know. And also, I think that they made the smart decision by not having a date right now. They actually have... they canceled their April date, which would have been next month. Yeah, that Coachella has been pushed around so often that it's almost like a joke. Like, oh, when is Coachella ever coming back? And I think that waiting to 2022 is not only profitable, in my opinion. I think it would make it to where a lot more people could probably save up money and you know, be able to, you know, go in the next couple of years and all that.
Just push it back and wait and then do it right. Instead of doing it half-baked, do it right, you know?
And also, like, they can't really regulate it, honestly. Yeah. Like, it's impossible.
How are you going to, but that many people, are you going to, take everybody's temperature and you think you're going to get even half those people to keep masks on? It's not going to happen.
And I'm not sure if we talked about this yet, but Disneyland is...
They're reopening, right?
They're reopening.
April 1st, April 30th? Something?
April 30th.
Okay.
Now, Disneyland has been wanting to push their reopen for a long time.
Are they having a reduced capacity?
Of course, they're going to have reduced capacity. They said that that their Orlando situation, that it's kind of curious because over there you're not supposed. There's a lot of things that they regulate. For example, one of the guidelines is if you go on a ride, which they're very. I'm kind of confused if they're still going to have a ride, but they put out guidelines for rides, and one of them is you cannot scream on a ride at Disneyland, which I'm going to say that's pretty optimistic of an expectation.
And so if somebody screams, they get a ticket? Or how does that work?
Like, I always assume Disneyland will kick them out. Disneyland has been famous for being they have a lot
of tough on their rules.
Tough. Okay. And if you steal at Disneyland, you're probably going to get caught no matter what.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that they would not have indoor rides. They would only be open to California residents, and that all visitors who are ages 3 and up have to have a reservation. So let's say you have a child with you that's 2, they don't need to be in the list. They can just come in. So I guess that's what they mean by that. And also, they cannot have parades and the nighttime spectacular and all that stuff. They're not going to have those things. They also have to have a limit and a time limit, meaning that people have to like disperse. Like you cannot be at one spot for too long. You kind of have to move on because
well, that's good. No, I like that. Okay.
And they're not sure if indoor dining will be a thing. I think probably that part will be it. They also, the Anaheim Resorts Hotel, they will welcome guests again, but they're going to be limited. And then the Grand Californian Hotel and Spa, that's going to reopen a little bit. And then downtown Disneyland will have limited capacity, and California Adventure will have its own limits. So overall, I think I feel a little bit safer at Disneyland than I would be at Coachella, just because I feel like with Disneyland, they are very good at controlling.
Even more on top of, be able to control things more. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think, personally for me, like, Orlando didn't prove to be the disaster I thought it was going to be honest. I thought it was going to be like the super spreader event, but it wasn't. And, that makes me happy. Yeah. It really does.
Which is great. But it's always a crapshoot. You don't know with something like that. Luckily, it wasn't. But then what was that motorcycle thing they did somewhere 6 months ago was. So, you just never know with those kinds of things.
And I think with concerts, people constantly move around, and it's kind of hard to kind of put like, because at Disneyland you can have lines.
You're in line, so that you go to this spot and then you're in line. With Coachella, you're just wandering all over the place.
You're wandering all over the place, and even if you try to separate people, I don't think the space over in India, I don't think there's a way for them to create I
don't think so.
Drive-through events. They've had raves, rave where they would have like people in booths, like high-rise booths, and they can dance in their little booth and listen to music, which I think those would be fun. Maybe, to be honest with you, I think those are interesting inventions, and I think they can be used for other things. Like maybe someone can buy a booth later on in the future and decorate it, and they get to have that as their event thing. But I don't know, it's the innovation for me, I suppose. I'm interested to see how Disneyland's going to be, and I don't know if I'm going to go back because they don't even have. Because for the price,
what is the price? It's outrageous. What is it? The ticket to get in for the day?
That's a good question.
Like $80, $100, something like that.
They actually got rid of the
day passes.
Not the day passes, but the I'm gonna say the annual passes.
Okay.
The annual passes, and when you go to Disneyland, the prices they get pretty high. I honestly can't think of it on the top of my head, but.
I know it's a big chunk. It's a big chunk of cash,
And also because they haven't been back, it's kind of hard for me to find prices because they haven't been back. But
you know what? I'm one of those people. I'm really careful. I'm gonna err on the side of caution with any of that. That's just me.
But we'll be back on the Culture Corner with more guests and more news. So stay tuned.
Right back.